let's go ahead and do some cleanup that we haven't done yet. One thing is that we have this loose heat shrink that we haven't bothered to tighten up on all 4 of our ESCs. And then we also have one little thing that I'm worried about is where we broke off this part of our power distribution board. Obviously to get positive and negative current here, there was some in the plate, which is right about here and right about here, really close to these standoffs. So I'd hate for especially positive current to hit that. So let's go ahead and take care of that first. And to do that, I'm just going to add just a little bit of electrical tape to the standoff. And I'm hoping just to be able to slip it down in there without taking off the standoff, but you might have to take off the standoff. So we'll see. Okay, so here's the little bit of electrical tape. Let's just slide this down in here. And ideally it should never touch, but that would be really bad if you're flying along or you take a crash and it hits a little bit and sparks. So there we go. So that'll electrical tape prevent that from touching. And let's go ahead and put another piece on the other side. There we go. And slip this. And this one could be a little bit tougher to get in there because of our battery lead. Yeah, with our battery lead there, I think we're going to have to go ahead and take off the standoff. So with the little tool that came with the motors, go ahead and take off the standoff. And I'm going to get a new piece here. So there we go. We're just going to wrap it around the standoff there. Okay. So that just looks like that. Just one layer of electrical tape around the standoff. So here we go. Since I have the tool holding the screw up, I should just be able to twist this on just like this. And there we go. Okay, so that cleaned up those standoffs. So now for the heat shrink, there's a few different options that we have. We can either use a hot air gun, which I do not have. We can use a soldering iron, which is difficult but doable. And then what I actually end up using a lot is improvised hot air gun, which is my wife's hair dryer with a funnel. For this tutorial, I'll go ahead and show you how to do it I'll show you how to do it with the soldering iron. So with the soldering iron, you just get it really close, and you just let the heat, but you don't actually want it to touch. Because if you touch it, then that would be bad for your soldering iron tip. So I'm just moving it around here, and you can just kind of hold it really close for a little while and you'll actually see the heat shrink. That's why it's called heat shrink, around what we've soldered here. And so any place that it isn't tight, just that's where you want to hold the heat. And with the soldering iron, it takes longer. But this does seem to be working fairly well. And we could actually squeeze these wires together a little bit. I don't know if that made a difference. So that's looking pretty good. So now I'm trying to get under here, and I could undo those 2 screws to get a little bit better. But I think this is just going to be fine. Oh, look at that go. Yeah, it's shrinking very, very nicely. Makes me wonder if having it next to the carbon fiber is how effective that is. And so with a hot air gun or a hair dryer with a funnel, it'll go faster, but the soldering iron does work. So there's that one. Now this is where it gets tedious, right? Is because you just kind of have to wait for it to shrink on these rest of these 3. So let's make sure that the heat shrink is in the center where we want it. Now again, we just hold and wait for, want to get really close but not touching, and just wait for it to start shrinking around where we've soldered. And I'm just watching this really slowly shrink around those wires. Just gonna move it. There, around the ESC. And if it does touch, it's probably not the end of the world. It just gets on your soldering iron tip. And then you have to clean off your soldering iron tip. Ah, shoot, I hit a different... Okay, I think that's pretty good on this side. I guess I can go under it. And it might help to have kind of a wider tip like this one. Okay. We've already done this side? I don't think so. And this is just going to make it hard for water to get in. I don't know if we're going to hot glue the ends. I'm going to continue soldering, or not soldering, shrinking the heat shrink on motor 2, and I think motor 2 is just about done, so let's move on to motor 3. So I'm going to put the heat shrink oh, actually this is motor 4. But put the heat shrink right in the middle and then just let the soldering iron get close without touching. It's kind of interesting, the heat shrink actually starts coming close. It comes up towards the heat first and then it shrinks down, so you gotta be careful. Really close, and I'm actually watching the heat shrink move towards the ESC and the wires. Okay, on this side. Shrink in. Go ahead and go under a little bit. Yeah, just a time-consuming process. I forgot to go under on this side. Just watching it collapse onto, just tighten up. And you could use electrical tape for this, but heat shrink I find is generally cleaner. But I end up using electrical tape a lot. But for the ESCs to motor, I figure we'll do it the right way. Okay, now that was motor 4. We skipped motor 3. So let's go ahead. And here I'm going to wipe off my soldering iron again, just in case I did touch the heat shrink a little bit. It takes a little while to get going at first, but now it's starting to go. Just kind of going across here. And then it drops down. And going under now. that wasn't obvious. I don't know if my hands are in the way. Okay. And this other side. Let's make sure not to hit any of these wires. Got a lot of random wires now. There it goes, just collapsing. Okay. There we go. And the heat shrink should be pretty tight, should be really tight on all of these. Shouldn't be moving around. So I think we're good to go. Just checking to see if it'll shrink a little bit more. I think on motor 1 we could have done a little bit more, yep. Tightened up a little bit more on motor 1. Oh, I didn't get the, did I get the bottom of motor 1? There we go. That tightened up on motor 1. And motor 2, it looks like we could do a little bit more. Yep, that's tightening up. On this side. Yeah, it's tightening up even more. And on the bottom, not as much as motor 1 was missing, but there we go. And we'll double check motor 3, even though, yeah, it looks like we could tighten up the bottom of motor 3 a little bit more. It was a little bit loose. I could visibly see like where it could be closer to the ESC. And even here on the side a little bit. Just tighten it in. Okay. And motor 4. Motor 4 is pretty good. The ESC for motor 4. And there we have it. All our ESCs are now, I'm just wiping it off. My tip in case I bumped the heat shrink at all. It looks like I must have at some point, but there we go.